Hey there. So now we're sitting on the command line. We've just pulled MiCADO from GitHub, or we've downloaded it as a release and untarred it. I've done the git clone command here, and I'm now in the directory where the Ansible playbook is sitting. You can see there's a number of files which begin with the prefix sample, and those are for setting up our credentials and setting up our hosts. I've already started to copy a couple across, so remove the sample prefix. I'll show you how it's done here for the host files, for the host file itself, and there we go. There's the credentials Docker registry file, which I'm not going to copy over today because I don't need to connect to a private Docker registry. I'm really happy just to use Docker Hub, so the public repo. I'll start going and setting these credential files up. So I'll start with the Cloud API credentials. This is where I would put in the email, address of whatever whatever cloud service provider I want to connect to, as well as the password, which, don't worry, is hopefully a lot more secure than this. When I'm done editing that file, I can then save it and go on to set the credentials for MiCADO itself. So this is, we're going to, by default, self-sign a certificate, but you can also supply one if you've got the cert and key files available, and we can set up the basic auth here for MiCADO. Definitely recommended to change the password to something that's a little bit more secure than what the default is. Last thing to do is set that host file, and that's where we're going to actually point to the virtual machine we've deployed in the cloud that we want MiCADO, the MiCADO master node, to be deployed onto. And that machine should be a 4x4, so 4 gigs, 2 cores if you got them, and 4 gigs of RAM. That's the recommended. Into the Ansible host field here, I'll specify the IP address of that virtual machine that I've started up, and I'll specify the user. And I'm using a small European cloud today called Cloud Sigma, and I know for a fact that the user of the username, the default for those VMs is Cloud Sigma. The rest of the configuration in the host file we can leave as is, and we can save. And I'm pretty much ready to launch the playbook. So I'll run ansible-playbook, which is the playbook command for Ansible. I'll specify the inventory file, which is the one I just finished editing there, and then I'll specify the MiCADO, the roles file that I want to actually use to deploy MiCADO, and that'll be MiCADO master. And I can specify some tags here. So I've gone ahead and I've built myself a MiCADO master image in my favorite cloud service providers. So all I need to do is use that image when I'm spawning up new VMs, and then simply as I'm issuing the Ansible playbook command, I just specify that I want to only use certain tags within this playbook, and the tags I want are the start tags. So I hit go. It's going to ask me if I'm okay to SSH to this machine, which is what Ansible does when it's deploying remotely, and Ansible will start doing its magic. So it'll perform a bunch of pre-tasks to make sure that we do meet the minimum requirements, and as I mentioned, those requirements are 4 CPU, 4 gigs RAM. We really recommend 15 to 20 gigs of disk space to be available. And certainly some free disk space within that. As you can see here, we're now initializing the Kubernetes cluster, so that's slowly coming up. After it does, we'll go through a number of other instantiation steps where we prepare this MiCADO instance and get it ready on the cloud. So the deployment of the MiCADO master node has been running along pretty smoothly here. It's all happened pretty quick. It doesn't take too long to do when we're using these pre-prepared images that I mentioned. Right now we're waiting for the state of the MiCADO core services to come up. And once we see all those services come up, we'll see a couple last security enablers that get enabled. Our IPsec tunnel will be created, and everything should start running pretty smoothly, we hope. We'll go through and check out. So there we go. We've got the message from Ansible saying that the deployment was successful, and the deployment, the playbook is completed. And now we'll go and take a look at the MiCADO dashboard and see if we can confirm that indeed our infrastructure is all up and running.